Hello, it's Katrina from the Sewing Studio. Welcome to the next episode of our mini series, Things You Can Do Using Mini Charms. And today I'm going to show you how to make this gorgeous little mini quilt using the on point technique. And I really love this technique because it looks more complicated than it actually is. So you've got your little squares set on point, but you're actually making it as if it's squares going that way. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now this one's not finished, this is just a top. So if you wanted to finish this, you could put backing and wadding underneath and put some binding around the edge. Or you could make it using the bagged method, where you put the wadding on the back, you put your backing on the front, right sides together, sew all the way around and turn it through, and then you could quilt it. But for today I'm just going to show you how to do this, and it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. So you're going to need 13 mini charms of your bright colours, so that's these ones. You're going to need 4 strips measuring 9 inches by 2.5 inches for your borders. You're going to need, I'll just check my notes, you're going to need 8 2.5-inch squares for these pieces, and also cut in half for these pieces. And then you're going to need 4 4-inch squares cut diagonally to finish it off and square it all up. So I'm going to show you how we do that. So as I said, you make it as if you're looking at it that way round. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take one of your 2.5-inch squares, and then you are going to join. So this was a 2.5-inch background square, and this goes, as I say, it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, and this goes like this. No, it doesn't. It goes like this. Right, so that's your first row. So that is this row here. And this corner we're going to finish off later on. So this is your first row. Then your next row goes like this. So you have a background fabric in the middle and your coloured fabric at the end. And then your pieces go like this. So you can see how this is beginning to form. And I've got one here that I've already sewn together. So you can see we've got all these seams here, this 1/4 inch sticking out here. I don't trim anything back because later on, when I come to use the bigger triangles, so these are your 4-inch squares cut in half, these are going to go along here to square it off. So our next row is one of our coloured squares, our background, colour square background. So I'm actually going to sew that now, and I'm going to attach that to this piece so that you can see how it builds up, because then all we're going to do is repeat these next 2 rows, so that's here and here, and that is our centre completed. So I'm just going to go over to the machine and I'm going to make the next row. So I'm going to start with one of the coloured squares and then the background square and so on, and I'm going to repeat that, and I'm going to sew that row together, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam. So right sides together. And I'm going to give that a good press, and I'm going to join that to the previous 2 rows. So I'm just going to press this, and I'm pressing my fabric to the my seams rather, to the dark side of the fabric. And now I'm going to join that, so I'm going to go back over to the machine. I'm actually going to turn it that way round. I think I'll prefer that colour combination. So I'm going to go back to the machine and I'm going to join this piece to this piece. So I'm just going to show you on this camera how I'm going to join this up. So I'm going to join up so I've got a light colour going against a dark, so it's a bit like a checkerboard effect. So I'm going to turn that over and I'm going to pop a couple of pins in, and I want our seams going the opposite way. So I think you can see there, that seam's going to the right and this seam's going to the left. So I'm just going to pin that. I'm going to pop a couple of pins in. And I always tend to start in the middle, pin from the middle rather than the end. And the reason I do that is because if you start at one end, by the time you get to the other end, you've probably stretched your fabric a little bit. So I start in the middle and work my way out. And I've just noticed that this seam on the piece that I did earlier has been pressed the wrong way. So I'm just going to give that a little finger press. So it's now going the way I want it to go. So if you press all your seams towards the dark side, you'll avoid that. And now I'm going to sew that using a 1/4 inch seam all the way down. And I'm going back to the iron and I'm going to press that. Let's just move these up here a minute. And then what you would do is you would repeat row 2 here and this first row here. And that would be your centre square completed. And then what you need to do is you need to join these corner pieces. So do you remember I said about these 4.5 inch squares which you've cut in half? And that would join here. And then this one would go here, and that would create your square. So when you've got these pieces added on, you would then put your other 2 corners here and here, and that would be your centre completed. And once you've got all that joined together and you've got that centre completed, the next thing you do is you take your 9 by 2.5, I'll just move all this out of the way a moment. You take your 9 by 2.5, and so you'd have your square completed, you'd have this piece here, and then you would join your 9 by 2.5 there and there, and then you would join your squares, so your 4 cornerstones here, you would join like this, top and bottom, and that you would then add them to your quilt like this. And that would be the end of your mini quilt. And as I said at the beginning, you can finish this off either by putting wadding and backing and some binding, or you can use the bag method and turn it through. You could do some cross hatching through here as you're quilting, or you could do a little bit of free motion in the border. So you could really make it pretty, and it's ideal for practicing a small amount of quilting. So as always, have fun, and I look forward to seeing you next time here in the sewing studio.